Cold War was a state of political hostility that existed between the Soviet bloc countries and the U.S.-led Western powers from 1945 to 1990, including a nuclear arms race and proxy wars. The Bay of Pigs was a failed invasion on Cuba by the CIA-sponsored paramilitary group Brigade 2506 on April 17, 1961, because Castro's guerrilla army tried to overthrow the Cuban government. The Bay of Pigs mission failed in 24 hours because the Cuban-American trained army was greatly outnumbered. The sudden American action frightened the Cubans and the USSR. The USSR gave nuclear bombs to Cuba for protection from the US because we had just tried to invade Cuba. The nukes that were just provided were pointed straight at the US for protection. There was a lot of tension whether there would be nuclear war.
President Kennedy went on national television to inform the public of the problems in Cuba and the decision he had made to enforce a quarantine for the missiles from Cuba. A U.S. ship blocked the way of a ship containing missiles on the way to Cuba. Cuba saw that as an act of war because of the blockade in international waters. The crisis took a dramatic turn when an ABC newscaster was approached by a Soviet agent saying an agreement could be reached. The agreement was that the Soviets would remove all missiles from Cuba. In return, the U.S. would promise not to invade the island. A big part of the agreement between the U.S. and the Soviets was the fact that the U.S. now had to remove their Jupiter missiles from Turkey. That was done in April of 1963. The Cuban Missile Crisis was hands down the closest that any country had been to nuclear war. A big part of why we didn't enter nuclear war was because of the lack of communication between the U.S. and the Soviets, so neither side really knew the true intentions of the other. The president also had a nuclear football, which was a briefcase that went everywhere with the president and had the ability to authorize nuclear attack when absent from nuclear command centers.